Carried. Right, we have a number of public input requests. We have declined one about Maori seats and another one about saving Queen Street because they weren't quite entitled and one of them had been sorted and decided. But we have accepted a number of them, particularly from the Stickered Residents Group, who are here to address us on issues related to Category 3, 2 and other issues. And we have some sympathy for you, and we have both the Chief Executive has met most of you, and I have been amongst all those places out there, although I don't know you particularly. We have officers here in person and online to listen, and it is very much something that we as councillors are considering right at the moment. So I'll ask you to come forward. There's three of you. We have basically Muriwai, Piha and Karikari, and then Auckland groups. It's probably worthwhile if we hear them one after the other, and then ask joint questions, if that's okay, if you don't mind that, because otherwise we're going to ask questions which will be asked questions about the same question three times. I hear you nodding there. There is a certain, I know that, that you all have your own particular views, but there's a certain complementarity about what you're discussing. So, councillors, if that's okay, we're going to roll with these one after the other, make notes of your questions and your comments, and we'll deal with that as a group later on. Is that acceptable to everybody? I think it is. Thank you very much for that. I'd like to welcome the Muriwai residents first, Stickered residents first. Please come to the table and give us your presentation. In theory, it's 5 minutes, but we're feeling somewhat generous to the views of your groups.
Kia ora, ko Caroline Balbooth tōko ingoa, no tāmaki makaurau o Kutipuna. Ke te noho ki Muriwai. I'm Caroline Balbooth, Muriwai resident and displaced from my home since February the 13th. I'm the owner of a Category 3 home which was inundated when the council reserve behind my home failed. The same series of slips completely destroyed 2 of my immediate neighbours' homes and severely damaged another 3. I've been in my home for a total of 12 hours since February the 13th. Our house was the first to be evacuated in Muriwai that night, so you might like to say I've been in this from the very beginning. At about 9 p.m, as the wind turned to a southwesterly, a tree fell against our home. We contacted our local fire brigade. They were on the scene promptly. By 9:30, they were cutting down the tree and, cautious about the potential for more to fall, advised us to evacuate. This was the last time my husband and I would see our local friends, Dave Van Swanenberg and Craig Stevens. By 4 a.m. the next morning, we would learn that one was dead and one was likely to not make it. This journey began more than 7 months ago and remains filled with grief and with loss. That night, 4 children in our community lost a parent. As a community, we lost our friends, we lost our homes, our security, and most importantly, our concept of the future. The one thing we didn't lose was each other. Muriwai is a community that has been self-supporting, and a palpable fear is that a Category 3 designation may exclude us from the community that has held us close through this time. But that doesn't have to be the case if a fair and equitable valuation and buyout process is underway. And why does this matter? Because as a community with no certainty around our future or where we will now live, we remain in fight or flight. That's not an emotive exaggeration, that is a psychological fact within our community. And what's the personal impact? It's an unrelenting physical and mental pressure that is debilitating communities Auckland-wide and pushing our mental health to the edge. But there is a way to heal and a way to help. And this is why Abe and I are here to share with you today.
Thank you, Carolyn. Kia ora tātou, ko e tū aho. I'm a Muriwai resident of 24 years. We have a red stick at home, and we're currently in category 2-3 limbo. We're from Muriwai, but our situation is not unique. Hundreds of households all over Auckland are in very similar situations. And fairness means that any solution that works for Muriwai has to work for the rest of Auckland as well. It's absolutely vital that we reach a conclusion that works for everyone. So we reached out to Aucklanders to find out the areas where we all agree through the auspices of Muriwai and Piha and Karikari, West Auckland and Central Auckland as well. When we reached out, when we asked people what kind of Category 3 buyout valuation model they want, 80% of Aucklanders want a model which includes RV and the option for a independent valuation of their properties as well. We can see that for 19%, an offer of RV is fine, and that's cool. But 4 out of 5 Aucklanders prefer balancing RV with valuations to reach a fair price for their properties. When we look at this combined approach to valuation and why it matters, it's because 81% feel it's either very or extremely important that they are able to remain within their communities. These are places we love, and their networks of support upon which we've lent strongly over the last months. And the fear is that 70% of us are concerned that offers below the current RV or valuation of their properties will prohibit us from actually buying back into our communities. It'll mean that we're not allowed to be a part of the communities where we have contributed and from which we gain strength. So it's really important that we don't re-traumatise the families who suffered already over the course of this year by further dislocating them from their sources of strength. When we look at other areas where Aucklanders agree about what kind of valuation process we'd like, 100% agree that homeowners should have choice in decisions which impact on our future. 98% want an independent challenge mechanism as a backstop to make sure that we can negotiate and find fair and effective recourse for valuation decisions and also categorisation decisions. 94% of us believe that it's extremely important for us to be able to participate in the process of recovery funding, valuations and buyouts. So when we look at the meaning of choice, participation and challenge, it means that we can actually trust council because it'll be transparent, but also that we're able to feel confident when dealing with our insurers. And it's really important to remember that the $700 million plus of Category 3 buyout funding is not a zero-sum figure. The more that insurers contribute to this in EQC, the smaller the percentage of contribution that council and central government will need to make. So when we look at what's in this for council of choice, participation and independent challenge, the more engagement and transparency, the greater trust in the process affected property owners will have, and robust categorisations that are obviously transparent are less likely to be challenged and are more likely to result in win-win solutions.
So our asks today. Firstly, a buyout policy that delivers a fair price that does not exclude us from staying connected to our communities. We would like to have participation, please, in the process and have choice within that process so that we can regain our autonomy and trust in the outcomes that we reach together with council. We'd like homeowner and council-centric buyout process where owners can deal directly with council rather than with multiple agencies. So once a valuation has been agreed upon, council uses its weight to maximise the amount recovered from insurance and EQC. So council and homeowners engage in one complete transaction, leaving council to use its power and influence to pressure what we as individuals have encountered as recalcitrant and reluctant insurance companies. And lastly, a mechanism for recourse to challenge the categorisation and valuation so that we can all do this once and do this right. Thank you for your time. It's been an honour and a privilege to present.
Thank you for that very timely and well-constructed presentation. I'd welcome the Piha and Karikari residents.
Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Good morning, esteemed members of the Council Governing Body. We are Tanya, Nina and Tasha, representatives of the Piha, Karikari and Awhata Stikid Residents Group. Firstly, we'd like to thank your council staff for their positive engagement and support over the past few months, and in particular the team at the Recovery Office. We look forward to you accepting the funding package from Central Government for the storm recovery. But we are here today on behalf of all weather-affected Aucklanders who will end up in Category 2. We note that the recovery package support for Category 2 owners is unclear. We will explain throughout this presentation why this is so concerning. Auckland communities are diverse and unique with their own histories and characteristics. They have strong connections and a real sense of belonging with intertwined friendships. In January and February this year, our worlds were ripped apart with massive devastation of our homes and environments. This has been and continues to be a stressful and difficult time for thousands of people in the city. This event is not over. Thousands in your communities are still in great distress.
So I'd like to say thanks to Auckland Council for some of the next few slides that we're about to see. But in May, government asked all councils across New Zealand to put storm-damaged properties into one of three categories. This process is happening now right across Auckland, with 7,000 homes currently being categorised. So this graphic shows the criteria for each category. Basically, categorisation is about risk to life. So Category 1 means that there is a tolerable risk to life. The property does need some repair work to get it back to the pre-weather event condition, and those repairs could be small or they could be very substantial. So this will have unintended consequences. Categories 2 and 3 are classed as having the exact same intolerable risk to life. The key difference is that Category 2, those repair costs are considered affordable. So EQC is an interesting thing. So EQC covers damage to land up to 8 metres from your home, as well as up to 60 metres of your main driveway. So if the damage to your land is outside of this 8 metres, you'll not get an EQC payment, and if there's no damage to your home, you won't get an insurance payment either. So this photo is a prime example of a property that falls outside of that 8 metre zone. So they're not going to get any insurance or EQC payments. Just 3 points I want to touch quickly on. There is a real misunderstanding around how insurance and EQC works. In many instances, homeowners are being offered far less by EQC than what the actual repair costs are for their properties. An example is a homeowner that's been offered $25,000 from EQC for their repair, but the cost to repair is upwards of $250,000. This is the exact issue that many Aucklanders are facing as we speak. You may have heard recently in the media that IAG, so New Zealand's largest insurer, has announced that it's starting to back away from reinsuring Category 2 property homes. The implications of this is that it will make borrowing money for repairs difficult, as banks will insist on insurance prior to any lending. So we're just all going to be stuck between a rock and a hard place in a living circle of hell. And what is considered an affordable repair has not yet been decided. A one-size-fits-all approach won't take into consideration an individual's ability to fund those repairs. So what happens if the property owner is paying for those repairs without financial support? For instance, a 70-year-old retiree who won't be able to service their mortgage, or a younger couple with a family that may already have a massive mortgage and they won't be able to extend this. And we'll probably find that banks won't be willing to extend mortgages anyway because the property that they are lending on is perceived as tarnished.
So if you can look at point 3 on this slide circled in red, courtesy of a council presentation this weekend, the $820 million for Category 2 solutions is earmarked to be put towards flood protection. We understand it's only to be used in Cat 2C solutions, so that's community level flood protection projects. This means there is nothing in the package to help the 2P flood or landslip affected owners who don't get enough insurance to cover expensive repairs. Some Category 1 homeowners could also need to do expensive repairs on their properties and they have no funding. So how can you help? Please take the time to really understand the scale of the problem that is coming for homeowners that end up in Category 2P with not enough insurance payout. Keep working on securing a financial recovery package for flooded and landslip Category 2P properties. In many cases, we'll not be able to fund these repairs on our own, and of course streamline the resource consent processes as much as you can and make consents affordable. Aucklanders are resilient. Working together, we can resolve the issues for Category 2 properties. And what your help will mean, well, if you grasp the Category 2P issues now and work on solutions, it will have profound implications for the success of this recovery for Auckland. You'll limit the financial devastation and stress that is, I've written coming, but it's already here for many of us. And you'll help to build back our communities and support our collective resiliency. Ngā mihi nui.
Ngā mihi nui.
Thank you once again for another very timely and well-constructed presentation. I'd welcome the residents from the Auckland Stickered Residents Association, please. Laura Preston and Maria Coppins.
I'm Laura Preston, a Middleway resident. We've been out of our home for 8 months now. Our home has been given an initial Category 2/3, and so we have no official clarity on whether we can ever return to our home or not. Like many Aucklanders, the scale of a buyout and valuation process will have a significant effect on my family's future and security. On the night of the cyclone at 10:45 p.m, we evacuated from our forever home. A home we'd spent years planning and saving to build. Like so many families around Auckland, our future security and financial independence solely rests on the process that the council chooses to value our properties. We are fully insured, fully compliant, rate-paying, tax-paying, law-abiding citizens, and through no fault of our own, we are now terrified that we will not be able to afford to stay in our community. Auckland CV values are not consistent across the city. In many cases, they do not reflect the actual value of the home and would cause inconsistencies and inequities if used as a buyout value. In the event of a CV-only option, this is how it would impact my family. We would struggle financially to afford to repurchase in our community, a community that we are deeply connected to, where my husband has lived for over 35 years, and where we choose to raise our 3 children. We would not be eligible for the same level of debt as we currently have due to increased interest rates and regulation changes. And if we were able to get a mortgage, we would not be able to afford a home half the size. We would only be able to afford a home half the size, which wouldn't fit our family. We would likely be forced to leave our community and the support of our friends and family. This is our story, but it is also the story of many across Auckland. For others, an inaccurate valuation could mean loss of home ownership, forcing them into a competitive rental market. Retirees could face mortgage discrimination due to their age and stage. Young families and first home buyers would be left with stranded debt. And some would be unable to afford to stay in Auckland or even New Zealand, resulting in Auckland Council losing ratepayers and subsequent income. For all, this means immeasurable financial and mental stress. We have analysed the differences between property sales and CV across the most affected suburbs around Auckland from the year prior to January 2023. This data shows that there is a large amount of variation across all affected suburbs. A CV-only approach will cause inequity between Category 3 buyouts. The differences can vary from between 50% below CV to over 150% above CV. CV may be appropriate value for some properties, but it is a blunt tool and not necessarily fair to all. So owners need a choice and valuations need to be accurate. Our preference is the template that Hastings has already adopted. I'll hand over to Maria to speak further on this.
Thank you, Laura. My name's Maria. The overarching objective of the Hastings buyout policy model is the removal of risk to life. There are 3 established voluntary buyout precedents: the Hastings policy model, which was released early this month, the Public Works Act, and the Project Twin Streams in Auckland in the early 2000s. All 3 policy models have these 2 things in common: 2 registered market valuations, including one sourced by the homeowner, and council pays reasonable legal and valuation expenses. Geotechnical risk modelling is not infallible. No landslide hazard was predicted for this commercial property in a 2020 GWE risk analysis. The escarpment above and opposite this property failed in Cyclone Gabrielle, completely inundating the area and destroying all 6 cabins. The GHD risk report for Muriwai assumes that the annual likelihood of landslides occurring that is similar in magnitude to Cyclone Gabrielle is 1 in 100 years. A similar magnitude landslide occurred in Muriwai in 1965. Climate change experts tell us that 1 in 100-year events now occur every 30 to 50 years. And in fact, similar or worse events could occur as often as once every decade. Local knowledge leads us to believe that not all geotechnical or flood risk assessment is accurate. Categorisation science is not exact, and it can't be. There will always be margin for error in risk-to-life calculations. There is a margin for error in risk analysis, and no one-size-fits-all for valuation across Auckland communities. Aucklanders need a mechanism to challenge decisions which may be perceived as arbitrary or inappropriate. 94% of Aucklanders think that it's extremely important to have the opportunity to participate in these decisions. An independent appeals process supports democratic principles. It creates certainty and opportunities for participation for those who are most affected. The property owner must be at the centre of the buyout process. And a fair process will always be better than litigation for all parties involved.
As a mother of 3, like all mothers across our city trapped in this desperate situation, when my children ask me every day, "When can we go home, back to our real home, Mummy?" I want to be able to give them the clarity they so badly need after so much distress and uncertainty. By prioritising the people in this process, we can start to heal and make plans for our future in the communities that we love. And that decision for all displaced Aucklanders lies in your hands. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much for yet another excellent and timely presentation. We acknowledge the situation that people are in and the need for us to work together to find solutions. I got up early this morning to attend a meeting where we considered many of those things that you were talking about. We understand the stress between speed and complexity. We are talking of around 700, give or take, Category 3s, and then there's the Category 2Ps and 2Cs beyond that. There's a lot of people. We want to have the ability to have a review process, but don't want that to compete with the need for some certainty and progress. I come from a background that includes geotechnical engineering, and I thoroughly agree that it's not an exact science, and I'm shocked at how brave some other engineers were in the past. We're working through the policy settings right now, so the presentations from the 3 of you are absolutely timely, and they are considering exactly the same things that we're going through. They're quite tricky. It requires a fair bit of balance. The government's in the middle of a blooming election, and so I don't even know who to talk to, let alone get their ear for the complexity. We want to be fair to you. We are absolutely taking your views into account. Councillors, I'd prefer, I know there's a list of questions here, but I don't want to get into a debate over the details. That's for next week. So if you've got a particular one or something or other, just hold that for a bit. We're at the general, these people have wisely kept their stuff at the general levels of what are the fair policy settings which we have to make, and they're very tricky. You know, the difference between a Category 3 and a 2P or a 2C is a very difficult thing. I notice that what you have said, that the affordable repair has not been decided by anyone. So if no one has got it right, it just shows how hard it is. And we're absolutely considering that right now. We are talking to possible partners to help solve some of the 2C and 2P situations. There are opportunities beyond that. The government has pushing us down a tight route of Category 3, and we are definitely going down that at the moment. But we're not forgetting 2C and 2P. They are right at the top of discussions. We had quite a squabble this morning about them. Personally, I'm going to move that we receive your presentations with thanks and humility. And the Deputy Mayor will do that. So I'm going to move that we receive these. All those in favour, please say aye. And we're going to go through the questions now, please, but try and keep these away from getting into the weeds. These people have asked us about policy settings, and the information that you've given us is incredibly helpful. Particularly the second presentation, it was you, sir, Mr. Drew. Very helpful. This is the sort of guidance that we are balancing, because we are balancing, when we're saying council's money, it is actually other ratepayers' money, so we have to balance them as well. And so we are absolutely aware of and concerned, and you have my 100% commitment to trying to get something or other here which will work for everybody. And you seem to understand the pressures are pretty tough, and I really rate that. And I was out there amongst them. I mean, I'm a surfer, so I know the communities, unfortunately. I'll stop there now, and I'm going to ask Councillor Turner, who is a Westie, who's got the first question in. But please, councillors.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Taking your direction, my question was about the policy setting between staying available land and mitigation costs. I'll save it for Mr. Tucker later. Thank you.
Yeah, well, we do have the opportunity to question. Mr. Tucker is the lead. I'm sure you know who he is. Oh, there he is. And he's making a fair fist of a dreadful job, in my view. Thank you, Councillor Turner. Well, a difficult job, a job which is brave to take. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Look, to all of you, I know my colleagues join with me in thanking you very much. It's a pretty stressful environment that you've come from, and to come in here, we live it every day, but for you, I know it's just sort of scary environment too. So really appreciate you coming in. My question is just, there's one for you and then one for Matt. Is there anything that you have shared with us today that isn't in the feedback that we've had out publicly? In other words, have you put this in any of the feedback? I know you're probably too stressed to probably have done it in any feedback, but has anyone put your feedback together? What I want to know is this new information that we haven't received by way of our feedback?
I may have a situation that hasn't presented itself before. Cat 1 is defined as not having an intolerable risk to life, that the property needs some repairs and you can go back home. I have a slow-moving slip on my property, which is being monitored by GNS monitoring equipment. So the data shows that the land continues to move,
but there's not a risk to life. It will keep moving in slow slip movements. Our house has suffered some structural damage, but we haven't had an offer from EQC or insurance yet. But we do know that when those offers come through, they're going to be substantially less than the cost to repair. Our geotechs have put the cost to repair at more than the CV or pre-market value of the home. It's just unaffordable and it doesn't make economical sense. So basically we, in that scenario, will be left with a home that we can't afford to repair, we can't live in, and it's not sellable. So our options are fairly limited of where we go from there. So I guess in that scenario, we're asking for a trigger to allow us to perhaps move to Cat 3 with a buyout option because we're uninsurable as well going forward.
Thank you. So, Matt, can we give the assurance for everyone around the table that everything that has been said today will form part of the material that we have to consider as we've gone out to Aucklanders?
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor. I thank you for being so brave. I understand this is like a daunting environment at the best of times, and then telling your stories as well, added to telling them in this environment. Thank you very much. Yeah, I can give you the assurance that you've hit all the high spots today, all of the things that you've talked about and asked us to be really seriously considering. We are, and some of the decisions that you're asking for are going to be made, I hope, next week by the governing body. There's several sessions next week with this very group of people to land some of the things you've asked us to land. But you've hit the high spots, and you've really would like your presentations also. The material that you presented, if we could have it from you and make it part of the conversation with the GB next week, that would be awesome. Thank you.
We've got a copy of that, and it is, I agree entirely, it was very helpful. And that last comment from Category 1 to Category 3 in that situation, I'm well aware of that. There was a very difficult subdivision where you are. It was one that was actually opposed originally by the First Council and overruled by my non-favourite sector of society, judges. I fully understand, and in terms of the affordable repair stuff, we're trying to come up with what is a percentage of the value, at which case it stops making sense. And that's as good as anyone can do. And it's my background to a degree. I wish it wasn't somehow or other, but so I think I've got the next one is Councillor Henderson.
Thanks. Just one, Mr. Mayor, and just really, really briefly echoing what Matt has said, because I know it's so hard for you to tell your story, and you have to do it over and over again as part of this process. And you know, we're all still dealing with things in West Auckland, Also, just very briefly as well, thanks for all the information that you've given us. I think it's actually extremely useful for us in terms of deciding what we need to do. I think I might ask you, Tasha, one question. Could you please expand upon the comments about not being able to get insurance, and whether there's anything you think council might be able to do to help 2P properties?
Yeah, it's those of you who we've talked already with a few people in government and council about it. It's an incredibly concerning move from IAG this week. We don't have any answers for it. Government is looking at possible alternatives going forward to insurance companies, but that's an incredibly tricky solution as well. I guess it's understanding that Category 2 repairs may not be able to, they may not be able to get insurance to get a mortgage to do the repairs. We understand there are insurers who take on high risk properties, but it's looking, you know, really uncertain and concerning. So just hold that in your mind when you're making calls around Category 2P properties and the impacts that maybe not being able to get insurance and maybe not being able to get mortgages will have on those properties.
Good question, thank you very much, and a good answer. I think that the insurance people are looking much wider than the people involved in this flood. There will be people in provinces of New Zealand who will suddenly not get insurance as a result of this. And I have raised that. I said, the very first thing I said to the current Prime Minister was, you're going to have to consider future insurability across New Zealand. I mean, it's an issue way bigger than the Mayor's pay grade, but I have lifted it up to the current Prime Minister and probably will have to raise it again with an inbound one. Very good question. Councillor Sayers.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thanks for your update too and your comments. My question's around the policy setting. Just trying to clarify or understand if anyone could answer this question around the valuation date. So is the anticipation that that valuation's done around the time of the event or now? Because obviously the more generous the offer can be, the less need to go through that independent resolution processes. So
all the precedents for valuation in a buyout situation, the three that I mentioned earlier, all take the value at the date before the event.
That is one of the policy settings, market valuation or valuation at the time, and the particular data that you presented was very helpful. The bit about, of course, coming back into your own communities is quite difficult because there's very little land spare, particularly in your community, and the pressure to increase the land available is what's got you into your difficult situation already. So whilst you're aware of those things, that's yet another complication. I'm sorry about that. Councillor Dalton, please.
Kia ora, thank you. Tēnā koutou katoa. Thank you to all of you wahine toa who have come in today in our tāne kaha. Kia kaha, kia maia, kia manawanui. I'm really, really so sorry for all that you are going through and continue to go through. I have a question for Maria, please. Just thank you for bringing to our attention the Hastings model. Just wondered, so the Hastings model, I think you said had two CV valuations, two registered market valuations. Is a recommendation for us to take our RV and CV and negotiate an outcome? What is your preference?
Thank you. So for many Aucklanders, a CV valuation, given market conditions, they've said that would be an acceptable solution for them. There are many others that are outliers in terms of the market valuation for the property market as it is now. For those properties and those suburbs, to take two valuations, one provided by council and one provided by the homeowner, and then negotiate any difference that there might be between those two, given facts that the homeowner can provide, is what they've done in Hastings, that they announced earlier this month in the Hastings policy model for the buyouts, and also the Public Works Act, and also at Twin Streams, the project that was undertaken in the early 2000s in Auckland. So for all three of those precedents, that was the approach that was taken.
Oh, thank you for that. Kia kaha.
Thank you. Councillor Filipaina, please.
Thank you, Chair. E ngā rōpū e tūnei ngā mihi kia koutou katoa. Just want to acknowledge all the groups. Chair, I've got three questions, one for each of the groups as you outlined earlier. First question is to MSRG. So the MSRG, I took a shot of it and I wanted you to expand on our ask today, which was a buyout policy that delivers a fair price that does not exclude us from staying connected to our communities. I'd like to get somebody to expand on that. I mean, how can you see that working? Because, you know, I mean, like staying connected to your communities depending on what the policy will deliver after our consultation and consideration, please.
Thank you for the question. Within Muriwai, there is farmland that would be appropriate for characterful development. We're Westies, we like to do things our own way, so a cookie-cutted subdivision wouldn't be appropriate. However, as I say, characteristic, unique developments would be appropriate for our community. again, reiterating the strength of our community, which I don't think anyone in Auckland or indeed New Zealand could doubt at the moment. We've been an incredibly strong and public force in this, in the promotion of not only our situation, but beyond. And in the analysis that we've found, even since the cyclone, sales in our area have remained at approximately 27% on average above CV. So whilst, as Maria mentioned, some households, depending on their situation, may find CV a palatable option, is as a blanket situation, it would exclude us financially from even the chance of staying connected to our community. And it's easy to put numbers and statistics around these things, but the real cost is the human cost. And the most heartbreaking situation that this applies to is one of the widows of their volunteer firefighters. And they bought at a time in the market where they spent 1.2 million, an average price in New Zealand, on their first family home. And it had a CV of approximately 900,000. That would debilitate Lucy beyond anything. And it's a huge concern in our community that those women are taken care of and prioritised. So that's a human example of the reality. It's not just numbers and digits and debt. It's extreme loss.
Alpha, just to answer, there is a limited availability of land out there, and they have asked us to look at some rezoning of some nearby land, not land which is at the bottom of the cliff. I don't think we're going to do that again, but that's kind of like a step, and we have planners looking into that at the moment. So we are listening, but I'm not prepared to just divvy up more land that results in the situation you've got yourself into.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, the second question, and I've only got two. The last one is to Matt. It's to PKA SRG. And I think I heard, it may have been you, Nina, around the EQC offering 25,000. But I mean, the remediation, the work that needs to be done is about 250,000. So I just wanted, Chair, just to expand on that, because who makes up the difference? So can you expand on that? And then Matt, I got you just the last question very quickly as well. Thank you, Chair. Kilda.
Yeah, thank you for the question. So I can reflect this back to my own current situation. So I am red stickered. My husband and I live almost at the base of a 120-metre slip that's come and affected our neighbours, and then we have some inundation around our property. Our house is structurally sound. So EQC have come in and did the land valuation for us. They've offered us $26,000 for our repair. We've had our own geotech report done. They've recommended that we could build a deflection wall, and they've said that the cost of that is upwards of $300,000. So we somehow need to come up with, $250,000, $275,000. We're nearing retirement age, so the chances for us extending our mortgage are probably pretty limited. I can reflect that back to flooding situations as well for 2P property owners. There's talk about people needing to lift their house up, but they're not going to get any insurance, and EQC kind of pay out for that as well. So they're going to have to do this massive structural change to their property and be stuck on a limb as well and not have any funding.
Yeah. Matt, this is the last and very quick question. The group ASRG ended up talking about valuations need to be accurate, and also that there was two valuations, some of the bullet points they had, one independent and one from the house owner. My question is around process. You mentioned and you answered earlier, we'll be having our workshops and discussions in regards to where we go. Is there a timeline where we, depending, and this may be to you as well, Chair, when everything that's been presented today and discussed goes back to our communities across Tamaki Makaurau around where we sit? Is there a process? Is it in the next 3 months, 5 months, 8 months? Is there anything that you can give as an indicator without sort of holding you to, it's going to be definitely in 3 months? it might be a hard question because I know that the chair's talking to you, so I don't know whether it's you, Matt, Phil, or, yeah. I just wanted to get the procedural question. Thank you.
Okay, well, that's the conflict between speed and accuracy and delivery. We have had public consultation to ensure that the wider public were supportive of contributing towards this, and that has been proven. That's an excellent thing. You have also added in from your own consultation the general support for what we're trying to do. Accuracy takes longer. We've got to get on with things. 700 individual valuations by two people equals 1,400 valuations. I think we might have to make some general thing and allow for a protest or a recall review for those ones that aren't. Otherwise, you're going to be there for a lot longer. We've got to make sure the process doesn't further inflict damage on these people. And so we're well aware of the conflict, and I'm quite happy that you asked the question, but I think that's where we've got to. And in the next week, you're going to all have to balance these things. There's lots of information. Read it and review it. But good questions, and they're high-level questions. Councillor Ferry, please.
Kia ora, and thank you. I won't add to the thanks and acknowledgement from my colleagues, just to echo that. The question I have is around, and this has been incredibly valuable, the question I have is around how we can meaningfully empower impacted residents to actually have a say in some of these processes. So, I don't want us to come up with processes that effectively, re-traumatise people, and I'm aware often that's really hard to do. So how can we best sort of connect with you, all of us, the organisation, in order to be able to get that input? So, I think about, for example, the word, telling people in Christchurch they were resilient after the earthquakes became, a real sore point for them. And you will hold a lot of sort of that social knowledge about what are the things for the impacted communities that are counterproductive. We might come in with best intention. So how can we best do that process from your point of view? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. The Auckland Stickered Residents Group is an umbrella group that brings together the different suburb groups across Auckland under one sort of communication mechanism. So if the council were wanting a single point of contact with Auckland communities, then the Auckland Stickered Residents Group could be that mechanism. We have a growing database. We have more than 200 affected residents in that database, and that's just in a period of 2 weeks. So we're growing quickly. We're reaching out very actively to the impacted communities. And we're running surveys as well. So we would be an excellent point of contact for the council in order to bounce off ideas.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And last question from Councillor Hilson, then we'll head on through a dreadful day ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you all for your presentations. I know that this must be extremely traumatic. The physical things we can see, but the emotional scars you and your families, especially kids, facing aren't as easy to see. So we really appreciate you coming here and giving us the human face to this disaster. I have two questions. One, I know that some of you have spoken about how you would like to see if there was a possibility of some sort of independent disputes process or a way outside the council whānau to question decisions after. Is there a sort of best practice or something you're keen to look at if these issues start to pop up?
Thank you. That's an excellent question. So there is a model that's been applied by the New South Wales government successfully in their Northern Rivers Reconstruction Corporation program that has provided a really clear model of how an appeals process policy could work. It is available on the Auckland Residents Group website. So if you went to asrg.org.nz, the New South Wales appeals process policy is there. It's very clear and very detailed, so that would be an excellent starting point. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the last question would be, and this is maybe not for you, but I guess I'd like to hear a bit of the flavour because it's the decisions we have to make. But I've been on the political advisory group, negotiating with our government partners and others, or giving the information to the officers and Matt to do it. And we really did push up the financial, I guess, number from the government. In the end of the day, we will have to make some hard calls based on, we don't even really know how to pay for our half of the process at the moment. But is there a cascade, or maybe it's not an answer for here, of priorities? How do we make that decision? Is it is there anything? There may not be. Around, so there's going to be, if it stretches out to 1,400 homes, that means everyone might get less, or, I'm not asking for a scientific answer.
No, that's right. We don't have all of that answer, but we have part of that answer. There is a different voice coming from government and council around, in particular, the funding for the Category 2 area. And we have, I think, included the letter from Carmel Sepuloni that states there is no more funding coming. We've had a message from council that they understand that negotiations are still open. First of all, we need to find out what the situation is for that, because that is probably a huge source of funding that is unknown. So that would be my one area that I think you could really focus on. As for prioritising, I would hate to be that person.
May I add to that, is that for some of us who evacuated on the nights with homes destroyed, as you will have seen across the media, we've known from the morning we returned to our homes that we would not be going back. And we have been very patient in waiting for the scientific and the legal backing to what is blindingly obvious when those of you who have stood there can see with your own two eyes with no geotechnical knowledge. So I would say for those people who are willing participants in the buyout process, who already have Category 3, is that they are prioritised and that a swift movement is activated with them because their lives have been frozen.
And possibly also the really obvious Category 1s, across Auckland. Piha, Karikari and Moruai are getting more attention from the geotechs because of our sort of cluster, if you like. But across Auckland, Lucy from the Auckland Stickered Facebook group is encountering messages every day from people saying, I just don't know what's happening. And so, if you've got easy ones to tick them off either end. That would probably be the second.
Can I add that many of the Auckland's group have not even had their EQC geotech reports done, so they are months behind getting even a payout of it.
Could I just add one last important point, that there is a lot of insurance money to add to that pot, and the more houses that are in the buyout group, the more insurance money will be added to that amount that's available.
Okay, thanks very much for that, and particularly the advice about picking the early cherries. I think they're not really cherries, but the obvious ones. That's very helpful too, because prioritising is another issue. There are 700 of these, so we should deal with the ones which are clear first. And as we deal with those, perhaps the definition of between 2C and 2P and 3 will become clearer. We are entering into a huge spend here without really knowing quite what the total figure is ourselves, so it's pretty risky for everybody. I think on behalf of everybody, I'd like to thank you all for your attendance and for the clarity of your offer and the information that you've given us, which is absolutely helpful at a time like this. Everybody in the room gets that. So thank you very much. I'm just going to adjourn for about 2 or 3 minutes only, and then we're going to start again. But thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much for your time.